Imagine discovering that the solution to a modern-day crime might be hidden in ancient history. From ancient civilizations to cutting-edge forensic labs, the story of fingerprinting is a fascinating journey that spans thousands of years. Today, we're not just looking at the science behind fingerprints, but how their use has evolved over millennia to become one of the most reliable methods of identification in forensic science. Let's dive into the incredible history of forensic fingerprinting, a story filled with ancient mysteries, brilliant minds, and groundbreaking discoveries. Our story begins thousands of years ago, in a time long before forensic science even had a name. Around 700 BC, in the ancient city of Jericho, now part of modern-day Palestine, Neolithic bricklayers left something behind that would outlast even their buildings: their thumbprints. These thumbprints were discovered on the bricks they crafted, preserved for millennia as a silent testament to their labor. Imagine a simple act of pressing a thumb into wet clay, unknowingly creating a record that would be studied over 9,000 years later. This discovery, documented by archaeologist Dame Kathleen Kenyon in Archaeology of the Holy Land, marks one of the earliest known uses of fingerprints. But Jericho wasn't alone in this ancient practice. In northwest Europe, at sites like Newgrange in the Republic of Ireland and in Brittany, France, fingerprints dating back to around 3000 BC have been found on various artifacts. These prints are some of the oldest known instances of humans leaving behind their unique identifiers, even if they didn't realize their significance at the time. As we move forward in history, we find that fingerprints were not just accidental marks, but were starting to be recognized for their potential use. In ancient Babylon, during the reign of Hammurabi around 1955 to 1913 BC, it is said that fingerprints were used to seal contracts. Imagine merchants and traders pressing their fingers into clay tablets, binding agreements with their unique ridges, an early form of what we now know as biometric authentication. Around AD 600 to 700, on the other side of the world, ancient Chinese historians like Qia Kungyan of the Tang period also recorded the use of fingerprints to seal contracts. In the law book Yunhui, fingerprints were mentioned as a means to ensure the identity of the parties involved. This shows a growing understanding that fingerprints could serve as a reliable method for verifying identity, long before the advent of modern forensic techniques. Fast forward to the late 17th century, where the study of fingerprints began to take a more scientific turn. In 1684, Dr. Nehemiah Grew became one of the first pioneers to study and describe the sweat pores, epidermal ridges, and furrows on both the hands and feet. His observations were foundational, laying the groundwork for future scientists to delve deeper into the mysteries of friction-ridged skin. A year later, in 1685, Dutch anatomist Govert Bidloo published Anatomy of the Human Body, which included detailed descriptions of what we now call friction-ridged skin. These early studies were crucial in advancing our understanding of the unique patterns on our fingers and their potential applications. Then, in 1686, Marcello Malpighi, an Italian physician, took these studies a step further. Malpighi focused on the function, form, and structure of friction skin, especially on the palmar surfaces. His extensive research led to the naming of a specific layer of skin after him, the Malpighian layer, located in the stratum mucosum of the epidermis. Malpighi's work was instrumental in establishing the scientific basis for studying fingerprints. By the 18th century, the idea that fingerprints were unique to individuals began to gain traction. In 1788, J.C.A. Mayer made a groundbreaking observation: the skin ridges are never duplicated in two individuals. This was a pivotal moment, as it highlighted the potential for fingerprints to be used in personal identification. The 19th century brought further advancements. In 1823, Johannes Purkinje, a Prussian scientist, classified friction ridge patterns into 9 categories. This was the first time fingerprints were systematically categorized into patterns: arch, tented arch, loop, and whorl being the 4 basic patterns that emerged. Purkinje's work laid the foundation for modern fingerprint classification systems. In 1858, Sir William Herschel, a British officer in India, suggested the extensive use of fingerprints for identification. His observations were among the first to propose the systematic use of fingerprints for administrative purposes, particularly in verifying identities in contracts and official documents. In 1880, Scottish physician Dr. Henry Faulds made significant contributions by claiming 2 cases where fingerprints were crucial in identifying individuals. He recommended using printer's ink to record known fingerprints, a method that is still in use today. As the 19th century drew to a close, several key figures emerged who would shape the future of forensic fingerprinting. In 1882, Gilbert Thompson recorded his own fingerprints to prevent forgery on commissary orders, marking one of the first known uses of fingerprints in a modern context. Meanwhile, in Argentina, Jan Vucetic, a Croatian-born anthropologist, developed the first fingerprint classification system in 1891, known as Vucetic-isimo. This system is still in use in parts of South America today. Vucetic made history in 1892 when he used fingerprints to identify a murderer in La Plata, Argentina, marking the first known criminal identification using fingerprints. In 1892, Sir Francis Galton, a cousin of Charles Darwin, published Fingerprints, a book that established the permanence of fingerprints and their unchanging nature over a person's lifetime. Galton introduced the concept of ridge characteristics, now often referred to as Galton details, which are the minutiae used to identify fingerprints. In 1901, Sir Edward Henry, with the help of Khan Bahadur Azizul Haq and Rai Bahadur Hemchandra Bose, developed the Henry classification system, which is still widely used today. This system organized fingerprints into a 10-digit classification method, making it easier to file and retrieve fingerprint records. The 20th century saw the global adoption of fingerprinting as a critical tool in law enforcement. In 1902, Dr. Henry Forrest installed the fingerprint system to prevent cheating by applicants for the New York Civil Service Commission. This was one of the first official uses of fingerprints for civil identification in the United States. In 1903, Captain James Park introduced the systematic use of fingerprints for identifying criminals in the United States, a practice that quickly became standard across the country. By 1904, Sergeant John K. Ferrier had introduced the Henry classification system to American police at the St. Louis World's Fair, further cementing the use of fingerprints in law enforcement. One of the strongest proponents of the Henry system was Mary Holland, who played a significant role in its adoption across the United States. Her advocacy helped establish fingerprints as a cornerstone of criminal identification. In 1933, the FBI established a latent fingerprint section to conduct technical examinations of fingerprints left at crime scenes. This division grew rapidly, and by 1974, on the golden anniversary of the FBI Identification Division, it had become the world's largest repository of fingerprints, containing millions of records. From ancient thumbprints in Jericho to the vast fingerprint databases of today, the history of forensic fingerprinting is a testament to human ingenuity and the relentless pursuit of justice. Each milestone in this journey reflects a deeper understanding of our unique identities and how they can be preserved, classified, and used to protect society. Fingerprinting has evolved from a simple method of sealing contracts to a sophisticated forensic tool that helps solve crimes and identify individuals with unparalleled accuracy. It's a story that reminds us of the enduring power of human curiosity and the incredible ways we've learned to read the unique patterns written in our very skin.